So I want to talk about this Netflix film, Don't Look Up, partly because of the film itself, which was pretty interesting, but also because of the reaction from the right. A lot of people, a lot of right-wing, one of my big complaints is that the right has not created an infrastructure for dealing with the arts. There are plenty of talented people on the right, plenty of good artists, but we don't have any kind of infrastructure, review structure, no think tank that deals explicitly with the arts, no award that goes to the arts created in a patriotic or traditionalist manner, nothing like that. And the left, of course, has all that kind of stuff. They give awards to each other endlessly, and we sit around and go, well, why don't they give them to us? Because they're them. That's why they don't give them to us. And it disturbed me that a lot of people, some people I really like, came out and they turned on Don't Look Up in order to hate it, and then found themselves entertained, and they really liked it, and they kind of gave it a good review, and it deserves some of that good review, but not all of it. And I just wanted to take maybe a little deeper look at what this film was. It's a film by Adam McKay, written, produced, and directed by Adam McKay. Fantastic cast: Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence star. Leonardo DiCaprio looking exactly like Jonah Goldberg. I would never, it was never on my bingo card, but still. And then it just has this incredible array of very, very talented people, from Meryl Streep, Kate Blanchett, Ariana Grande does a funny turn on herself, Tyler Perry, and the great Mark Rylance, and Jonah Hill is in it. So it's really, got a terrific cast. Now, Adam McKay is a climate crazy, and he is a really talented comic writer. He started on Saturday Night Live, and he worked with Will Ferrell. He co-wrote Anchorman, which is a very funny film. Talladega Nights, pretty funny. But he also is a socialist, and he backs Bernie Sanders, which means he's politically a child. I mean, anybody who at this point hasn't figured out that socialism has a moral aura, but as a working economic system, it destroys everything it touches. You cannot find a socialist economy that hasn't been destroyed by socialism. What you can find is capitalism being so successful that certain socialist programs like welfare can be included in it, because it's just created so much wealth. Capitalism has created so much wealth that they can afford to spend some of it on socialist style programs. But you can't find any place where socialism has not destroyed the economy. And people like Bernie Sanders keep saying, well, it's like Norway. And Norway goes, we're not socialists. We tried that. It stank. Scandinavia, not socialist. None of it is true. So he's obviously a Hollywood ignorant when it comes to politics. And you could see this in a film he made called The Big Short, which was based on a wonderful book by Michael Lewis about the 2008 crash. And it's all about how Wall Street sold subprime mortgages, bad loans, into the economy, so that when the housing market went down, the economy crashed in 2008. And not to go over this forever, but just to point out that all of it is true, but it's half true. Those bad loans were instigated by the government, by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, saying, we have to give loans to people who, basically to minorities who've been underserved. And you think, well, maybe they were underserved because they couldn't pay back the loans. Doesn't matter. We're going to give them the loans, and the government will essentially guarantee the payment of the loans. Now, George W. Bush warned again and again that this was going to crash the economy. This is on record. George W. Bush kept saying, if we keep doing this, it's going to crash the economy. And Barney Frank, who was the guy who was most in charge of this, and Christopher Dodd, the senator who was also in charge of it, kept saying, no. Barney Frank said, we'll roll the dice. We'll roll the dice. So now you have all these banks who have made loans they know cannot be paid back and are just depending on the fact that the value of homes keeps going up, going to Wall Street and saying, what do we do with these loans? These loans are going to back up. And so Wall Street starts selling the loans into the economy. They start packaging them and then burying them in all kinds of products. And was it wrong? Yeah, it was. But they didn't start it. So in other words, they were to blame. It's true they were to blame, but the start, as almost always in these things, the start was with the government. Now, the crash happened. Obama took control of the country. It was one of the reasons he took control of the country, because the crash happened. Who was punished? Nobody. Nobody went to jail for anything. And who wrote the reform law to answer the crash? Barney Frank and Christopher Dodd. It's called Dodd-Frank, right? And it is an absolute boondoggle which does nothing but put government intrusion into businesses and basically protect too big to fail. It makes too big to fail part of the law. It was a complete boondoggle. So in other words, it's not that Adam McKay is a bad guy. It's not that he's wrong about the things that he's saying. He just has the Hollywood political vision, which is the vision of a child. He does not see the whole story. You know, I have no problem with knocking Wall Street. After the crash, I went after Wall Street for saying, you've got to bail us out, because I thought, like, well, what's the difference between them and a welfare queen? What's the difference between a guy who says, you know, like, yeah, I blew my business, but now the government has to bail me out because I'm too big to fail, and somebody saying, yeah, I don't want to work. How about just sending me some welfare? Same guy. They're the same guy. As far as I'm concerned, I went after them all, but he only goes after one side. And that is the problem with Don't Look Up. So, all right, Don't Look Up. DiCaprio plays an astronomer, and Jennifer Lawrence plays a PhD candidate who finds a comet headed toward Earth, and they realize they have to spread the word because this thing is going to destroy the Earth. And here's just a part of the trailer showing you how things go.
I hear there's something you don't like the looks of.
We discovered a very large comet.
Oh, good for you.
It's headed directly towards Earth.
This comet is what we call a planet killer.
At this exact moment, I say we sit tight and assess.
Sit tight and assess.
Sit tight.
And then assess. The sit tight part comes first, then you got to digest it. That's the assessment period.
This is the worst news in the history of humanity. He just blew us off.
So that was them going to the president, who was played by Meryl Streep, and telling him what's going on. And she's more worried about her Supreme Court nominee and, you know, her polls and all that stuff. She doesn't pay any attention. So they decide they have to go to the press, and they go to one of the morning shows that is run by Cate Blanchett and Tyler Perry. And here's a little bit of that also from the trailer.
Our guests today have made a pretty big discovery in space.
How big is this thing, though? Like, can it destroy my ex-wife's house? Is that possible?
There's a 100% chance that we're all going to die.
Kate?
Hey.
Well, the handsome astronomer can come back anytime, but the yelling lady, not so much.
Not so much.
So it's funny stuff. I mean, it really is funny. You recognize the morning people, you recognize the president, you recognize all of these people. And at the center of the whole thing is Mark Rylance, who is, I just think, one of the most spectacular, he's a British actor, but just spectacular actor. And he plays whoever you want, Steve Jobs, Tim Cook. He plays Silicon Valley millionaire. We meet him, he is introducing his new program. It's called Bash Life, I think it's called. Here's just that scene, which I just love because Rylance is so terrific.
All of my life's work, really, I see, has been driven by an inexpressible need for a friend who would understand and soothe me. And you know, now all those years of work have come to fruition with Bash Life. Our new Bash 14.3 phone is fully integrated into your every feeling and desire without you needing to say one single word. If I feel
sad, afraid, or alone,
the Bash 14.3 phone, when set to the life setting, instantly senses my mood through blood pressure, heartbeats, and...
Your vitals show that you are sad. This will cheer you up, Peter.
You are my best friend. You are my best friend. And you're really like you. You make me happy, best friend.
Wonderful.
That's wonderful. That's Rylance. You're just absolutely brilliant playing this childlike but also murderous capitalist. So the first half of the film, the first hour of the film, it's a long film, is really good because it skewers people we recognize. We recognize that vapid press. We recognize a government that Meryl Streep could have been anybody, could have been a Democrat or a Republican, only caring about her polls, only caring about her image and her, whatever political thing she's doing. We recognize the Silicon Valley guy who's apparently spiritual, but is actually a capitalist down to his soul. All of that we recognize, and it's funny. And Ariana Grande plays the vapid Ariana Grande. She plays basically, who wants to promote her album by bringing her sex life or love life onto the screen. All of it is just perfectly good satire, perfectly funny, and absolutely fair and recognizable. And then it ends on a faintly Christian, family-friendly note, basically saying that family and God are really what makes life worthwhile, and we had everything. We should have been paying attention to all the things that we had. Between those 2 points, something goes terribly wrong with the film. And I'm saying this, here is a place where my politics and the quality of the film link up. That's not always true. Sometimes you can make a great film that offends my politics. This is not the case. Suddenly, Meryl Streep turns into Donald Trump. She didn't have to be. She didn't have to have any party whatsoever. We all recognized her as basically an American politician, but suddenly she's Donald Trump, and suddenly capitalism destroys any chance we have of survival. And the left is still kind of gently ribbed as the people who understand that death is coming, but are too vapid, too full of Ariana Grande songs to actually do anything about it. So it's kind of saying the left is right, but they're just too ineffectual. But it is saying that the right doesn't deal with a crisis. Now, is that true? Of course not. Of course it's not true. I mean, if you look at Donald Trump, you can hate him all you want, and he did many, many things that really offended me, but he took care of ISIS. He wiped, the ISIS caliphate off the face of the earth. He restored the economy. I don't think the Republican record of dealing with crises is any worse than the left's. I think it's actually better than the left's, unless it's a metaphor for climate change, which it is. And we know it is because McKay gave an interview after he made The Big Short saying he was going to deal with climate change next. And Leonardo DiCaprio says the movie is about climate change.
I often in my career looked for a film that had an environmental undertone to it. But much like the inundation of news on climate change, a lot of people don't want to hear it, and making a film about it is an even more difficult task to take on. And Adam, who's incredibly outspoken individual on the climate crisis, really wanted to do a film that brought, an element of dark comedy to what seems to be a daunting issue.
So what the film is saying is that a comet heading toward Earth, which you can see, is the same level of threat as a computer program that predicts something is going to happen, and even when honestly looked at, is not predicting anything that terrible. It's predicting stuff that can be dealt with. If the computer model, which is a predictive thing made by human beings, is true, it's not the same thing. It is not the same thing, which raises a question. It's a big trick on the left to criticize things. That's why they have critical theory, which makes you feel that their solutions are right. But ask yourself this question. We get it. Our politicians are corrupt. Our media is vapid and stupid. Our rock stars are idiots. We get it. Nobody listens to the science. Nobody cares about what the science says on either side. But do we actually feel there's not enough panic in American culture? I mean, it seems to me we go from one fake crisis to another. The climate crisis, racism is a crisis. Remember, racism was a health crisis. We needed to give and it's all about, the crisis is always about giving the powerful more power. Because there's another story that we could tell that's the opposite of Don't Look Up, which is the story of Henny Penny, or sometimes we call it Chicken Little. Remember, Chicken Little thinks the sky is falling because an acorn hits her on the head, and she runs and says the sky is falling, and all the other animals, the Goosey Lucy and Cocky Locky and Ducky Daddles, they all follow her in a panic saying the sky is falling, and Foxy Woxy says, oh, come this way, and you can tell the king that the sky is falling, and leads them all one by one into his den, where he bites their heads off and kills them. And only Henny Penny, or Chicken Little escapes because she's so vapid, she forgets what the hell she was panicked about in the first place. Foxy Woxy is socialism. Foxy Woxy is why they want you to panic. We don't need more panic in this country, and this film telling us to panic essentially over climate change is leading us into the fox's den. And Adam McKay is fine with that because he says he's a Bernie Sanders socialist supporter. He's a Hollywood child when it comes to politics. He's a talented man. He's a talented, intelligent individual who can do good stuff, but he is a child. And when the right looks at this, to ignore that it is a metaphor for this fake climate panic, and to ignore that it is, in fact, part of the media that is skewering, is to miss the entire point. We need better artistic commentators, we need better cultural observers, and we need more of a presence in the culture so we can just respond to talented people, but misguided people like Adam McKay, and to films like this one. If you like this content, and how could you not, you want to like and subscribe, and also subscribe to the Andrew Klavan podcast, wherever you get your podcast, for more Klavan-y goodness.